Welcome to Power Your Profits podcast, your friendly guide in bringing your business revenue to the next level. Listen as host Susie Carder hears inspiring stories of success from her fellow entrepreneurs and transformational leaders. Prepare to make significant change to your strategies as they unravel the secrets of building multi-million-dollar businesses and the most effective tips on finance, marketing, and sales accountability. If you want to make your first step towards explosive business growth, this is the right podcast for you. Without further ado, here is your host, Susie. Welcome to this episode of Power Your Profits podcast. I'm your host, Susie Carder, and I am so excited to have my guest, Justin Recla. He's an Army veteran, former counterintelligence agent. That's a spy guy. Justin and Tanya and Neva, their daughter, are considered the first family of inspirational personal development and live their lives with the testament to the power of synergy, love, and communion with God. Justin's message is simple: help others, do things better, and have self-domination in everything that you do. Please welcome my guest, Justin. Oh my God, Justin, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you. I'm so excited to introduce you to my community. I fell in love with you when we had our call and we talked, and I think I was on your podcast. Like, it was a great synergy. So let's share with people, what your magic is, what your sweet spot is, right? And how is your business different and unique than anybody else's?
Wow, that's how long have we got? Well, first and foremost, as my bio said, my wife and I are both former counterintelligence agents. And so we come from the government, and we come from a sector of government that most people never leave. They're usually in it for forever. But we got bit by the entrepreneur bug and get called to do something different, to do something better in the business world from what we were seeing. And in some of the curriculum that we taught at the Counterintelligence Special Agents course was kind of our doorway to that. And so we now operate an inspired community called Superpower Experts. We have a podcast network that has 16 some odd shows on the network, all in the personal development, feel good business space. You were on my Incorporating Superpowers business podcast. And then we offer programs for those that are wanting to move into from being creators, but moving from coexisting into collaboration and into the creator space. So we serve those that typically pour into others and help train and teach collaboration so people can become better leaders. And really, collaboration is the way we do better in today's world. And that's what we do. We exist in that space, and we kind of take a woo-woo personal development twist to it, but it's all from a space of love and just pure guidance. Yeah.
So now, counterintelligence, give us what does that really mean, right? Because I know in my head what I'm making it mean, but I don't know what it means in your world.
So it's funny. I used to joke around a lot with our students as we were training new agents in counterintel. I tell people I just work with a bunch of stupid people. Counterintelligence right now, but counterintelligence is the form of intelligence that is very dependent on human sources. Mm-hmm. It is the whole purpose of counterintel is to not only identify what the risk to our resources our military units are, but to not only figure out what the enemy's collecting, but then to counter it with other information. When you hear stories of espionage and spying, those are the realms of what counterintelligence falls in. If anybody's seen a Jason Bourne movie or spy games, you kind of have a hint of what it does. Tonya was actually one of the few agents in the world that's actually testified in federal court on an actual espionage case. She was doing surveillance and investigations on people that were committing espionage against the United States, and so that was her path, but we met teaching at the Counterintelligence Special Agents course. So it's really to boil it down, counterintel is understanding people, what makes them tick, what makes them work, why they do the things they do, understanding people, why they deceive, how they deceive. And all of that's been translated into our personal development body of work that we uncovered during our time as agents.
That is awesome. That's next level, right? So if you think you had personal development, you have not had it until you start working with Justin, right? That's amazing. So there had to be a huge challenge going from government, right? Because people have a hard time going from a job to entrepreneurship, but you went from government to entrepreneurship. So what were the challenges that you faced just in that transition?
Oh my goodness. The fact that I knew zero and jack about business. That was the biggest challenge, is that we knew nothing about the business world. We knew that we were set out to make the world a better place. And we wanted to do that for ourselves first, of course, right? And we knew that we had information. We knew we had something valuable to offer. And our very first venture was actually in the corporate counterintelligence space. We were doing due diligence and vettings for business to business transactions. We just translated the skill set directly over. But what we learned along the way is that we were going to be more effective in helping people get to that space of understanding themselves as leaders, all the work that we did as counterintelligence agents, and that we'd be more effective in that space to affect change than looking into the frauds and scams. And so we finally stepped away from that. But that was one of our biggest challenges. We didn't know what we were doing. As a matter of fact, the first 9 months of our venture into entrepreneurship, I went to Afghanistan as a civilian counterintelligence agent. And because we had no idea, we went from a really cush paycheck to not making a single dime. I mean, we walked away from $300,000 a year,
Yeah.
and to go do our own thing, and had no clue on how we were going to do it. But we were operating in faith. And when I left for Afghanistan to pay the bills, Tonya was the one that dove in and figured out the business world and got it to the point where she's like, okay, I think I've got the field. I understand. Let's go build and create now. And I came home, and we've been at it ever since. And that was 2012.
Right. That entrepreneurial journey, right? I did the same thing. I'm like, I'm quitting that job. I'm launching this. I'm like, oh,
Ooh. Yeah. What the biggest lesson I learned was in when I talk to people now, when I'm training people now, teaching people now, of like, they want to take that leap, is unless you really got a solid foundation in faith and your walk,
yeah,
don't burn the ships.
right.
Step into it, walk into it, and get to the point to where the business is generating enough income to where you can now step away from what you were doing and focus on this full time. Tony and I, we burnt the ships. I ended up in Afghanistan, and it took 9 or 10 months before I was able to finally come home.
But the nice thing, because I always talk to my students, is they have a back door, like a back door meaning a job, a back door meaning having a spouse that's working and you don't have to hustle. When you burn the ship, there is no back door, and you're like, I got to make this work, right? Because I'm not going to go back to a job. So there is a blessing in that, right? Hard. Not, I don't, necessarily recommend it, but I do. If you have that back door, you never have to have that drive, right?
Yeah,
that
no.
hunger to make that happen.
Yeah, Tony and I kind of lead each other by the hands, put our faith in God, and we just jumped. And we've been at it for the last 10 years, and we had no safety net. We had no JOB. We had top secret security clearances. And the minute that we stepped into that space, I knew I was never going back. And that's something you can't get back easily, because once it expires, it's nearly impossible to get a job back in that space without a clearance. So we literally set the ships ablaze and went full speed on this path that we've been on for the last 10 years.
Well, and the power of being a couple, because I worked with my husband for 17 years, right? And that was not an easy job, right? And we have a lot of students that, are married and work together. So what's your guys' superpower in managing that? Like, do you guys have both distinct roles? Like, because it can be a really big entanglement versus, a strong business.
Yeah, it's awesome. We actually just did a coupling workshop around the very similar topic of how do you work in relationship, right? Not just in your marriage and in your life, but how do you do it full time with your spouse? Like you said, it is the most challenging thing that you will ever do, because you have to be husband, wife, business partner, CEO, and whatever roles that you play along the way, and you have to set them aside into your own different containers. For Tony and I, we really focus on managing our emotional, physical, vibrational and energetic containers. We are constantly checking in with each other in those spaces and making sure that we are connected with each one of those levels before we communicate. And yeah, we slip. Yeah, we fight. Yeah, we have everything going on in the world that every other couple does. But at the end, we make it through because we love each other. We have our faith in God, and we trust in that, knowing that we don't have to figure it out ourselves. We can figure it out together. And time after time after time, she has been my continual lighthouse along this journey. And honestly, what's our secret? My wife. My wife is the secret, because she is pure magic.
No, I love that. And I love that you're speaking so clearly about your faith in God, right? I believe that my gift from God is my life. And what I give back to the world is my gift back to God, right? And you guys both represent that. And, it's so funny at events, people go, "Are you a Christian?" Like they're whispering. I'm like, yeah, why are we whispering?
like Jesus is a bad thing to say, right? Like, it's
right.
like,
If people don't, if they don't like that, that's okay. They're not my ideal client. They're not my community, not my tribe. Or I'm not pushing my belief on them. But I think as, Christians, to be that stand so people can see that there is something different. You're walking that walk, you're talking that talk. Not that we're perfect, definitely not perfect, but it definitely is easier when you've got that as your alliance, as God as your alliance. So
well, what's awesome is that from jump, when we made this jump, is while Tonya is the CEO physically, we make God our CEO. It's not our business. It's not our money. It's his. We listen to what he says, and we tap in, we tune up, and we don't have to make decisions because we're just constantly shown what to do next. The only time it ever goes bad is thinking that the counterintelligence agent who knows nothing about business has the answers.
right. But then I'm asking God, like, you want me to do that? No, I don't think that. Like when I'm not obedient, right? I hated that word for years. Like, I am not obedient. Like I sound like I was a dog or something. I'm like, oh no, obedient is just following, right? And the messages that you get, you can call it your intuition. We're happy to call God, spirit, right? And when I listen to it, it's like, I don't know how to do that. And then you have to surrender and trust. And that's probably one of the hardest things, is surrender and trust.
That is, especially for us entrepreneurs who we have a lot of skill sets. We know how to do a lot of things. We've experienced a lot of things, but even along the way, we find our little points of light of that. We're like, oh, wow, I haven't done that yet. Or that seems big, bad, and scary, or I'm not sure if it's going to work. If we try to logic our way through it, we would never get anything done.
Right. Well, and the reality is, when I look at it, I worked with Lisa Nichols, and so she was in The Secret. And when the whole Secret came out, people would say, well, I'm praying. Well, I'm putting it in the universe. Yeah, but you got to get off the couch. You got to go be in action. You got to go show up at events. You got to do the work. It doesn't magically, like, a genie in a bottle, poof, right? If you're not doing the work that needs to be done and being in the environments that can be the catalyst for that, that's where I find the miracles happen. Is that meeting you go to, that person you sit next to, or our relationship is like, I needed you today. We were just on another call with, this company called the Funnel Cures. And my client was saying, I was just praying about, I needed this solution, so it was like so great and so divine, but she had to show up for that call, right? She had to show up for the work. She had to be obedient to go, I'm going to do this. Susie keeps emailing me. I'm going to show up. And so I love when that happens. Let's talk about, because you see it with your clients, I see it with my clients. So many people are still in the struggle of our economy and the pandemic. And so what has been your guys' secret sauce, right, in staying in action and growing?
It's just fun. Yeah, it's funny is that for us, the pandemic was a huge boost to our business. The podcast network, almost tripled in size. We just, everything picked up for us in that space. And so for us, our secret sauce through it is just recognizing that at the end of the day, you're okay, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're okay. Everybody, the concept of money, while it makes the world go round and it makes life easy, ultimately at the end of the day, nobody's ever really died of lack of money. They've died of lack of food, maybe lack of water, right? But they've never died of lack of money. And understanding exactly how money works, what it is, the fact that it's an energy, it's not physical, you can't touch it. That's really what that's been a huge part of our journey and the work that we do with our clients, is that, because at the end of the day, if you're not good with yourself, it doesn't matter. All the money in the world is not going to make the difference. I know billionaires that are miserable in their relationship. I know millionaires that are miserable in their relationship. And you can't fill that gap with cash. It just doesn't work. You know?
You realize that the money doesn't fill the void, right? If you're only
No.
chasing the money, if the void's there, the void's there. It doesn't matter how much money that you
Nope.
have. One of the things I love about your guys' business is this is a family business. You haven't put your kid like in the corner and said, like, we're going to work, right? Your daughter had her first business card at 2, right? Like 2,
Yep.
right? So share, because I think I've always brought my kids in. My kids would stuff my binders. My kids would, back in the day, I'm a little seasoned now, would stuff the CD cases, right? And I would pay them to stuff the CD cases. And so talk about that and how you brought her in. Well, she's doing her own deal now, right? So she's on a mission.
She's on fire right now. Matter of fact, she's actually doing an online event right now herself that she's hosting. She does oracle card readings for people through our community, and so she's actually doing that right now as we talk. And she's absolutely amazing. Kids are.
But how old is she now?
She's now 12. She's 12.
Yeah, I thought she was 12.
Soon to be 13. She's actually going into high school this year. She's starting a little young, but that's good. But she's absolutely amazing. She's like you said, she had business cards at the age of 2. And when Tony and I started venturing into the business space, we made a pact, because part of the reason why we got into business was so we can spend time with her, so we can be with her. We didn't want to be apart from her. And so we just made a pact that everything that we did, she was going to do. And if she couldn't participate, we didn't do it. And God just put the right communities in front of us. And we were able to take her to business conferences. She sat in on meetings. Bob Proctor mentored her for a day. She was 4 years old when she sat down and had the conversation with Bob Proctor. And,
awesome.
God bless. And, he came here to do some great stuff. And, he passed some of his knowledge on to her, and she's now going strong. She's had her own she had her first podcast, Superpower Kids. She did over 100 episodes, interviewed all sorts of celebrity types. She's retired that podcast, and she's getting ready to do her next podcast called Leave It to Neva. And she is pure magic. She's actually runs 3 of our sections in the podcast production. She oversees our workers in those space. So she's a manager. She's 12, and she probably knows more about business systems and processes than a lot of adults do. So she's also one of my biggest teachers, because she's so close to source, and her faith walk with God has been one that has been a mirror for me along the way. And the girl is wise beyond her years.
Isn't that great? Like when you bring your kids along, like I look at my children, I'm just inspired of who they are as women now. And it was because of my community, right? I brought them along, they played a big game inside of our communities. There wasn't, I grew up in the day, children should be seen, not heard, so I love that. I want people to hear that, so that you realize you can bring your family and your business, with guidelines, with support, with boundaries, not just giving people money, right? Giving people a paycheck.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
She's earning her paycheck. She's earning her seat at the table clearly at 2. How cute at 2 could you see her with a little business card? It's who I am.
She even had an elevator pitch. That David Corbin actually interviewed her and did like a little 5-minute interview with her when I think she was 2.5, maybe 3 at the time. And he interviewed her, and she had a whole snap, and she was so cute. The little girl voice of, hi, my name is Neva Lee Recla. And it was just, she's grown so much since then. And like I said, she's not only leading sections of our business, but she's actually mentoring. She actually coaches some of our clients, especially in the space that when somebody comes along and needs to heal that inner child, She's
Mm.
absolutely magic in that space.
Baby's an old soul, right? I think
Oh,
who's she
very
gonna
much.
be, right? Who's she gonna be at 30, right? Which is awesome. Like imagine y'all if you have this education, at 2, right? Like
Yep.
sitting with Bob Proctor, sitting with people that they can get inspired by. So that's delicious. So tell me what is your biggest challenge that your guys are facing in your business right now? Because I think part of my mission and what I'm committed to is people think that when you get to a certain level, we don't have challenges, right? I
Yep.
might be having challenges. I just might have more zeros than somebody else. I might have less zeros than somebody else, but we're still having them. And so I think there's I'm not alone. Part of what I want people to hear is, yeah, the bigger you play, the bigger the breakdown. And so what kind of challenges are you facing right now? And then how are you tackling that?
Oh, wow. That's so for us, we recently just went through a huge rebrand. And we're still kind of in the midst of it. Everything's kind of still getting shuffled around. And so part of that challenge is figuring out what that looks like, right?
Right.
And we just had a founders meeting this morning, going through some of these things. But the way we're managing, the way we're dealing with this is we recognize that we're not alone. We've got a collaborative coaching program. So it's not just me and Tonya and Neva coaching. We've got a team of coaches that work with us, and our clients coach with each one because each one of our coaches brings something unique to the middle, something that I don't have experience in, something that Tonya doesn't have experience in, or a different perspective, right? Sometimes it takes a tribe to help, especially when you're teaching collaboration along the way with all the personal development stuff. But that's really our biggest challenge has been is we just did a huge rebrand. Okay, the rebrand set, but what's next? How do we leverage this? How do we leverage that? What's the pricing here? What's the pricing there? Okay, do we need to change this? Do we need to change that? The core of who we are is staying the same, but it's the how are we presenting it to the world that's changing, because the rebranding completely upended all of it, completely
Yes.
up on. It was like we thought we were going here, and God went, oh no, come here, back over here, right? And we're like, oh, and there it was. But the beautiful thing is when we stopped, the rebranding of the website, the logo, all of that, it came together like that, super quick, because we didn't hesitate. We just listened and took action.
Right. If
Now we're
more
in,
people would listen and take action, life would be so
yeah,
much easier. We want to
yeah.
say suffering is optional. Suffering is
Yes,
optional.
yes. Suffering is option. Oh my goodness, I love that. Suffering is option. I'm going to incorporate
You can beg, borrow, steal it, my friend.
that.
Because you realize like, oh, it doesn't have to be this hard. It's
No.
systemic, right? And part of it is listening, part of it is taking those notes, part of it's taking action and radical action and not sitting and waiting. And, so I love that. So let's look back, in your history of being, an Army veteran, counterintelligence agents, entrepreneur. What's been one of your biggest, we can say challenges, failures? Some people don't like that word. And then what did you learn from it? What was the biggest thing? I never like it. I call them the gifts that's wrapped in sandpaper. They suck when they're happening, right? And I don't want to talk about it when it's happening. I talk about it afterwards, but not in it. So what was that biggest failure? And then what did you learn from it?
Wow. I think this is an ongoing lesson for me. And I imagine it will be until I disapparate from this planet, or get put into the dirt, one of the two. It's the constantly reminding myself that I don't know anything. I don't. I don't. And it flares up, the ego kicks in, and you know what? I've had my ass kicked more times in the last 15 years by God than I care to count. And that's been my biggest challenge is how do I constantly become better? How do I become more like Christ? How do I become a better leader, a better father, a better husband, right? How do I do all that knowing that I'm still human,
Yeah.
knowing that I carry all my fears, but how do I do it in such a way that doesn't vomit all over my wife, doesn't vomit all over my children, right? And how do I do it in such a way that maintains who I am without destroying everything that I've been given? And so for me, it's a constant checking in with God to make sure that Justin's not getting in the way, because at the end of the day, Justin's talented. I'm a great little puppet monkey that does stuff on the keyboard and technically knows this and knows how to talk to people over here and do this. But at the end of the day, Justin, the human, doesn't know anything, and he likes to get in the way sometimes.
Well, I think we spend, right, our teens, our 20s, our 30s trying to be perfect, trying to be good enough, trying to get it right, trying to look good, try to have all the answers, be smart enough. Let me get this education, that degree. And then you realize none of that matters, right? What you're speaking to is die to self. Like my ego or she-go, if you're a woman, to go, how do I really tap into my God-given talent, right? And be humble enough and surrender, because that's what's hard for me. Obedience and surrender just is really hard for me, and just to keep doing it daily, right?
That's been my challenge as well, is the constant surrender. And I'm fortunate because I married a woman who exists in that space. She is in constant connection with the divine. She lives in the abstract, and she is constantly visioning forward from a space and a perspective that I typically don't carry, because I'm the operations director. So I'm down in the weeds, right? And I'm making sure all the systems and processes are working and our teams are working and so forth. And so I don't always have the same perspective she does, because I'm typically down in the weeds, but I'm fortunate enough to know that that's where she exists. And so I can always lean into her in that space. I can always trust that she's there. And she knows that I'm here in this space, holding the containers that I hold, so she can do the work that she does. So it makes a very, very remarkable experience, and it's been a phenomenal journey so far.
How long has been married?
Matter of fact, we just February 14th, we just celebrated our 13th anniversary, 15 years together.
Congratulations! That's amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome. And you're still speaking of her as, you're dating, which is magical and beautiful. I love that. Okay, so the Super Network has become the #1 podcast. How did you guys become the #1 podcast and the #1 podcast in personal development? Because that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
how'd you all do that so quickly, right?
Yeah, it was, being the #1 podcast for personal development is one, we're from what we can see across the field, I think we're the only podcast network that is focused on personal development. There are so many other individual podcasts out there. And when Tonya got the guidance to put together the podcast, again, it wasn't hers. She got told what to do. And she started her first podcast, and then Neva had a podcast, and then we had a third podcast. And what we saw is that through the power of collaboration, we were multiple voices coming together, working together, marketing together. I think we've done on the network, I think we're over 1,600 episodes right now. And across, like I said, right now, about 16 shows. So the power, the reason why we're able to get there, and we're ranked in the top 1.5% of all podcasts globally right now, is we got there through the power of collaboration. We weren't just trying to do it ourselves. We brought other people into it, and they shared their voices, and we shared their voices, and it just becomes like a domino effect from there, because now the guests that I have on my show, they're tapping in and listening and sharing the network with their circles, right? Which means that the other shows are getting exposure and so forth, and marketing. You can see the kind of domino effect of whether they're just having a single podcast trying to fight against the sea of millions and millions and millions of podcasts. We brought everybody together, put them onto a single podcast channel, and broadcast from there. And it's just been magic since.
I think what I love about what you guys are up to is, you know this and I know this, and people have been in the industry a long time. There's a lot of charlatans in our industry. And I've spent a lot of money wrong, right? With the wrong people doing the wrong things, but because they had a good shtick, right? Or they might be a persona, but the persona doesn't produce the result. So you actually help people, right? We can create a podcast. They can create a podcast with you and your company. So let's talk a little bit about that. Because when I look at the investment, the time, there's people charging $15,000 to $40,000, for a service, and they're chatting at them versus giving them the it and the tool. So How do people get to play with you in that? Because a lot of our community, they're looking for the answer. My job is to bring them the best people I can. They have to do your due diligence. Everybody, y'all do due diligence. I'm just bringing you my best friends. And so I want you to share, like, how can they come and play with you? And what does that look like? Because it's a full package. It's not like you should have a podcast. Right?
No, exactly. And we take a little bit different approach to podcasting, not only in the collaborative space, but those $25,000, $40,000 programs that you're seeing out there are like, hey, come get a podcast, and we're gonna show you how to make a ton of money at it.
Right.
And that's where we see a lot of the charlatans, right? Because not everybody can do that. Not everybody is that persona who can carry that, and they spend all this money and then they don't monetize their podcast, and now it creates this negative feeling, right? And this ugliness. We take podcasting from the space of it's transformation work, and it's transformation through podcasting is where we're at with it. And it is literally, you get a podcast, but we're going to teach you how to podcast. We're going to give you the ins and outs of podcasting. We're going to just be blunt up personal with you and get real with you and let you know that unless you've got the convergence already on the back end systems, a podcast is not going to monetize your business. Your business should already be monetized. Podcasting is just a broadcasting mechanism for you to continue to further monetize your podcast, right? So we kind of take a different approach to it. It's not a money-making device, it's a marketing device. It's a way to connect in with your audience in a real, authentic space where they can hear you, feel you, and grow with you. And that's how trust is built, because by the time they get to actually purchasing on your site from hearing you and listening to you on a podcast, they already know who you are. And so our process is it's literally transformation through podcasting. We do all the training, we do all the setup, we do all the production. It is literally a done for you system, as well as we have accountability calls with our podcasters to make sure they're on track, to make sure they're not getting on their own way. It's not the full coaching intensive that we offer, but it's hey, are you where you need to be to make sure you can produce the shows you need to produce, so you're conveying the message you need to convey to the world through podcasting.
Exactly. And I love that you said it's one arm in your marketing, right? It's about the know, like, and trust, the consistency factor, keep showing up and showing out, and they find you, right? Then you're the overnight success.
Yep. Yeah. 12 years later, 10 years later, however long it took, right?
Well, we also have the Superpower Experts membership. So what is that? What does that look like? What do we do in that? What is that? Like, what is that?
Absolutely. So the Superpower Experts community is our it's a place where our hosts and our listeners can come connect with one another. We do a monthly vibe call where anybody can come join us. It's free to join. It's a monthly vibe call. We have a different theme every month. March, matter of fact, March's theme is conscious collaboration. And we have 3 levels of participation in the monthly vibe call. We have the outer circle, which is just come receive. And just receive it. If there's something that you don't resonate with or you don't agree with, just receive it with love, leave it in the container, and just let it be. The second one is that middle container, which is the participants, right? Come play with us, contribute to the conversations that are going on, share, communicate, participate in the activities that we have. And then the third one is the co-creator space, where people can co-create within the ecosystem that we've built. And so the monthly membership is awesome, because we do sell the individual events online, but as a member, $50 a month, you get access to all of the events, all of the recordings, and we do workshops, we do classes, we do new moon ceremonies, we do all sorts of fun stuff. Matter of fact, that's one of the events that Neva's doing right now. She's doing Kid Clarity, her oracle card readings that she's doing, and it's just a fun place to come reflect and connect with others, and step away from social media and connect with people in a real way.
Yeah. So again, if you're looking for a community, right, a community that speaks your language, I'm always looking for those people who are the real deal, and I can definitely say that you guys are the real deal. So in closing, what do you think? What's one thing you wish I would have asked you on this podcast?
What's my favorite ice cream?
Oh, chocolate or vanilla?
Rocky Road. That's what I really, I'm here to just to serve. I mean, what is one thing you think your clients would want, or your listeners would want to know about me? I'm an open book.
You are an open book, and I love that about you, right? And I think that if I had, like, what's one thing that you want to be remembered for? Like at the end of the day, at the end of the road, what's that one thing that you've lived your life full out, Justin?
That I did good. And I already got proof of that because my daughter's amazing. I win. Tony and I win. We if I fail and fall on my face and die tomorrow, I win, because anybody that's ever met Neva, interacted with Neva, had a conversation with Neva, you know what I'm talking about. And from that space, I win. I'm good.
Oh, let's all crying now. The mom hearts and dad hearts. Like, yeah, that's a good thing. So if you guys want to play with Justin, in the show notes, we're going to give you 15% off your first month of your membership. Like, come play, come look. I love the whole podcast conversation. Don't grow alone. Right? We're in business for ourselves. We don't need to be in business by yourself. My goal, my passion is to bring you the people that can support you, that have high integrity, that have ethics, that are willing to support you and go that extra mile. And I believe that's what you guys are about. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time and your generosity. And more importantly, your love for your family, right? Your love for God and your love for your family. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Power Your Profits podcast. Let these building blocks from today's most successful industry leaders equip you with the necessary resources and tools to finally establish the highly profitable business of your dreams. Want to hear more? Listen to more episodes at https://poweryourprofitspodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. Now is your time to rise to the top of your game, so be sure to catch our next episode. Until next time,